you probably already have some pretty high standards in your life. You just kind of suck at applying them to bodybuilding. If you guys didn't know, I've been incredibly institutionalized over the years, and that taught me a lot about life standards, in many different fucking areas. However, I also was not the best at applying them to bodybuilding until like a switch flipped in my head. Um, let's take it back about a decade. I was a little bit of a shithead kid. I was fucking running away from home and dropping acid for fucking days and like just doing a bunch of dumb shit when I was a freshman in high school. And I got sent to one of those like bad kid rehab programs, like the ones where the kids end up on Dr. Phil later because they're all fucked up. I went to one of those down in Mexico, and it was a terrible fucking experience. 100%. I mean, guys, I was a corrections officer for 3 years. I saw them do shit to fucking 14-year-old kids that if I did to a grown felon, I would immediately lose my job and maybe face charges or lawsuits at least. So yeah, I'm not going to go into specifics. Bad environment, not a great place to be in. And honestly, that's kind of where I first discovered fitness. I played some sports as a kid, like some soccer or whatever, but I never like worked out of my own free will. But I started to there. There was a gym. There was, a track I could run around. If you went to the gym, you could have your parents send you protein powder. There was extra food, and we were, like, starving all the fucking time. So I was like, fuck it, might as well work out. I get some protein powder. Anyways, that place was pretty fucked. And like, everything I did on a daily basis affected when I left. So I had to have like a certain standard that I held myself to, where I was like, this is all the things I need to do to not get in trouble, mind my own fucking business, and get home. And that was one of the first places that ever taught me, I don't know, holding myself to a standard, having a rigid schedule, all that shit. And yeah, it was like Groundhog Day every day. Sound familiar? Kind of sounds like bodybuilding, except it was completely involuntary. Anyways, fast forward a couple years, got out of that place. I think I was 17, joined the National Guard, shipped off to basic when I was about 17 and a half. And once again, got to learn standards. There was a standard for height and weight I had to meet. There was a standard for, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run, all that shit. There was a standard for literally everything. The way you made your bed. I'm sure half of you guys probably served at some point, so you know exactly what I'm fucking talking about. There was a minimum standard for everything. And that was the first time in my life I ever saw a minimum standard, and that was the standard that would get you by, get it done. I saw a minimum standard, and I wanted to exceed that. I'd kind of been a chronic underachiever my whole life, and I was like, started getting into it, like, especially in the fitness side of things. I was like, damn, I'm actually pretty good at this. When I practice, I can run fast. When I do more push-ups, it leads to me being able to do more push-ups later. Crazy, progressive overload. Whoa. Anyways, that was probably the first time I ever felt a competitive spark ever. And, that came into play later. And then, same thing when I was a corrections officer, guys. Like, there was a standard way to do things, that guaranteed results, I guess. It was like I had a head count to do it this time, and I had to serve the meals this way, and there was a standard for everything so that nothing went wrong. I'm sure, because I talked to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys work in similar field. You know, you're not doing some bullshit like HR head of Black women's dance studies. Like, that's probably 0% of you guys work jobs like that. I talk to a lot of you guys, blue collar, fucking military, cops, firefighters, paramedics, all that type of shit, you know? So you probably have, at least at some point, had to learn a standard and hold it to get the results you want, whether that result is getting your job, keeping your job, getting promoted at your job, getting recognized, whatever, you know? You guys at some point have had to hold yourself to a standard, especially if you've ever had to go through like an academy, or even worse, teach an academy. You know, I was a field training officer when I was a corrections officer for a bit. And it was like I had to relearn the standards all over again so I could teach them right, you know? Yeah, as I said, I rant about this all the time. You learn standards in your life. Now, where a lot of you guys are failing, and where I failed for a long time, is applying this to bodybuilding. And when I tell you this, it's going to seem so simple and so fucking, you know, why haven't I been doing this? Okay, you know, you guys, you wake up at work for the same time every day, whatever, however early that is, you know. You do all this shit on a pretty rigid schedule, you know. As I said, most of you guys probably don't have the most flexible jobs. Why are you not doing that with your fucking food? You get up at the same time every day, okay. Then, by that logic, you should eat breakfast at the same time every day. So, why aren't you eating a meal 2 at the same time every day? And a meal 3 at the same time every day? And a meal 4 and a meal 5? And why is it not the same shit? Because, you know, if you find, you know, a meal plan that works, you know, it's clearly going to get you results, and you make that a standard and you hold yourself to it and you just add it in with the rest of the standards in your life. Like, you know, I make sure my fucking uniform's clean. I make sure I have all my meals packed. Like, guys, it's fucking, it's that simple. And it took me so long to realize that. Like, you know, I'd have my whole life fucking mapped out except for bodybuilding, which is realistically, guys, probably the easiest part to map out. You know, I mean, I have a meal plan I follow every day. I don't have to think about that. I just need to make sure I have a standard of eating all my meals every day and that nothing compromises that, because that's just simply my standard now. You know, when I go in the gym, you know, you know, I've had to follow fitness standards in the past for jobs before. It was like I needed to do this amount, whatever. Why is that not something you can apply to the gym? You know, maybe not an amount, you know, you don't need to hit a certain minimum number of reps, but, you know, your standard should be, hey, I'm pushing this as close to failure as I possibly can, or to failure if it's safe to do so. You know, it's, and then you build these things in where they're automatic, they're standards, they're no longer goals anymore, they're standards. Because that's where a lot of you guys fuck up. You know, you think, oh, I need to eat 5 meals a day. That's a goal. No, that's not a goal. That's a standard that gets you to a goal of whatever physique you want. The bare minimums of bodybuilding, you know, eating 5 to 6 meals a day, taking high doses of steroids, you know, training your fucking face off, getting as much sleep as humanly possible. You know, those aren't goals. And I hate when people tell me my goal is to train harder. My goal is, no, that's the new standard you need to have. That's going to get you to your goal that you want later. And I mean, the proof is in the fucking pudding, guys. I mean, when I started living like this last year, actually about exactly a year ago, like right after I competed for the first time, I was disappointed with how I did. And I was like, I need to take things more seriously. So I started following a meal plan. I started, you know, being a lot more, I I always trained hard, but like being way more present for my training. Like I am aware of every rep I am doing and milking it to the fucking max. You know, I got smarter with my steroids. I didn't cycle hop, you know. I made all this shit standards through hiring a coach, total honesty. You know, I'm not coming up with this shit myself all the time. This is like standard practice in bodybuilding. But by doing this, I mean, fuck, I broke my all-time weight plateau by 30 pounds. While I don't think I went any higher in body fat than I have in the past, you know? Pretty damn good, guys. And I'm cutting down, revealing all that right now, and it's looking good. I'm not there yet, but I will tell you, when I show you guys in a couple months, like lean last year versus lean this year comparisons, it's gonna be fucking night and day difference. This shit works. Making your minimum standard something that is fucking conducive to your goals works. All you got to do is follow it. Like, you guys know how to do this already. I'm telling you, you've done it a million times in your life. You know, you fucking, hey, it's my standard that I drive my kid to school at 8 a.m. every day. Okay, then it should be your standard that as soon as you fucking drop them off, you eat a meal at 8:15, you know? Apply yourselves, guys. That's really where I'm going with this. You have the skills. You have the discipline. You just need to fucking apply it. Anyways, guys, wisdom for today. Make sure to subscribe. Fucking check out all the other videos. Later.